Chapter 1203. Tao Scripture. At that moment Di Linyuan was also excited. He was pleasantly surprised. Just like when Mo Yuan had first heard about the Tao Scripture. Tao Scripture. This was something that all self-release realm experts could not refuse. It could be said that the Tao Scripture was the hope of all self-release realm experts. All these years the imperial family patriarchs had been searching for Yi Qingji, but there was no news. Now Yi Qingji had appeared. Di Linyuan suddenly smiled. Heaven is helping me. After saying that, he disappeared. At that moment, he was no longer in the mood to care about the demon Dao family. Soon, the matter of the demon Dao family spread throughout the Dao world. Then, when the whereabouts of the Dao Scripture were spread, the entire Dao world was boiling. Dao Scripture. The Dao Scripture had actually appeared. That was the supreme divine item of the Dao world. However, when many people learned that the Dao Scripture was in the five-dimensional universe, they immediately felt despair. They could not even go down to the six-dimensional universe, let alone the five-dimensional universe. The cosmos barrier wasn't a joke. Only some superpowers could use some special methods to go down. Ordinary people did not have that ability. In the Dao world there were 5 major powers: the Divine Court, the Imperial Family, the Immortal Pavilion, the Dao Village, and the former Demon Dao family. Of course there were only 4 major powers left. The moment they learned of the whereabouts of the Dao Scripture, the 4 major powers suddenly ordered all the experts outside to be recalled. A Dao Scripture caused the entire Calm Dao world to boil up. In the 6-dimensional universe. On this day the One Hall Master once again came to the Tendo's residence. The 6-dimensional Tendo was still playing the Guqin. Playing the Guqin, reading books and raising fish. This was the 6-dimensional Tendo's daily routine. She was living a carefree life. In the pavilion the One Hall Master said in a deep voice, I received news that the Dao world's legendary divine item, the Dao Scripture, might be in Yixian's study. Dao Scripture. The 6-dimensional Tendo who was playing the Guqin, stopped and looked at Wenjiarua. Are you sure? Wenjiarua nodded. It should be true. The reason that woman is so powerful might be related to the Dao Scripture. The 6-dimensional Tendo shook her head. No. Wenjiarua looked at the 6-dimensional Tendo. What do you mean? The 6th dimension Tendo said softly, that woman's strength might be due to herself. This is what I feel. Wenjiarua said solemnly, without the scripture she would never have reached that level. The 6th dimension Tendo looked at Wenjiarua. We can't achieve it, but it doesn't mean others can't. Wenjiarua was silent. The 6th dimension Tendo asked again, what are your plans? Wenjiarua said in a deep voice, many people are ready to make a move. The 6th dimension Tendo shook his head. Don't move anything. The strength of that woman is beyond our imagination. Wenjiarua nodded. I know, but the temptation of that scripture is too great. The 6th dimension Tendo nodded. Restrain our own people. As for others, try to persuade them if you can. If you really can't, just let them be. Wenjiarua nodded. Alright. The 6th dimension Tendo said, also, inform Yixian and let him know his current situation. Wenjiarua hesitated and said, I think it's better if we don't interfere. The 6th dimension Tendo shook his head. We have already formed a good karma with him. We can expand this good karma. As she said this, she looked at Wenjiarua. Jiarua, I have seen that woman. That woman's strength has already exceeded my understanding. I don't believe that a scripture can make a person so strong. Even if she became so strong because of the scripture, she is not someone we can provoke. Wenjiarua smiled. Don't worry. When she almost destroyed my United Hall, I knew that we were not her match. The 6th dimension Tendo nodded. Those who have not seen that woman personally would not know how terrifying that woman is. Another point was that she saw disregard in that woman's eyes. Disregard for life. If it wasn't for that Yixian in the lower realm, that woman might have really destroyed the 6th dimension with one sword. She didn't seem to be joking. At this time, when Jiarua suddenly said, the ancient temple seems to be moving too. The ancient temple. The 6th dimension Tendo turned her head and looked, saying softly, I don't care. I can't do anything. Wenjiarua nodded. They couldn't afford to offend Yixian. They also didn't want to provoke this ancient temple. As for this Dao world, they didn't want to provoke it. Now they only wanted to protect themselves. At this time, the 6th dimension Tendo suddenly got up and left. I'm going to find someone. After saying this, she disappeared. In the pavilion, Wenjiarua sighed softly. One wave hasn't even subsided, and another wave rises. The 6th dimension Tendo came to a starry sky. She walked to the front of a cosmic barrier. After passing through it, she reached the fifth dimension. The sixth dimension Tendo said in a deep voice, "Are you there?" At this time, a voice came from outside. "Are you looking for me?" The person who spoke was the fifth dimension Tendo Munyenyen. At this moment, Munyenyen was holding a roasted fish and gnawing on it. The sixth dimension Tendo said in a deep voice, "I received news that the Tao World's supreme divine item, the Tao Scripture, might be in Yixian's study." The fifth dimension Tendo blinked. "Is that so?" The sixth dimension Tendo was a little surprised. "Aren't you surprised? Also, do you know what the Tao Scripture is?" The fifth dimension Tendo giggled. "What is the Tao Scripture?" The sixth dimension Tendo said in a deep voice, "You know, right?" The fifth dimension Tendo said with a smile, "Just pretend that I know." The sixth dimension Tendo was silent. She suddenly realized that this fifth dimension Tendo was a little mysterious. The fifth dimension Tendo suddenly said, "Do you have any thoughts about the Tao Scripture?" The sixth dimension Tendo shook her head. "No. What about you?" The fifth dimension Tendo said with a smile, "I don't either." The sixth dimension Tendo was puzzled. "Don't you want that Tao Scripture?" The fifth dimension Tendo smiled and said, "That Tao Scripture belongs to someone else. Why would I want it?" The sixth dimension Tendo said in a deep voice, "They have discovered that the Tao Scripture is in your fifth dimension. You might be in danger." The fifth dimension Tendo said with a smile, "It's fine." The sixth dimension Tendo was a little curious. "Aren't you worried at all?" The fifth dimension Tendo blinked her eyes. "Worried about what?" The sixth dimension Tendo said in a deep voice, "The Tao World and the ancient temple will target Yixian. Moreover, Yixian is in the fifth dimension. Those people have the ability to destroy the fifth dimension." The fifth dimension Tendo shook her head and smiled. "It's useless for me to worry. Don't you think so?" After a moment of silence, the sixth dimension Tendo said, "Are you very strong?" The fifth dimension Tendo blinked her eyes. I'm not strong at all." The sixth dimension Tendo shook her head. "But I feel that you are very strong." The fifth dimension Tendo said with a smile, "It must be a misconception, haha." The sixth dimension Tendo took a deep look in front of her. "No matter what, take care." After saying that, she turned around and disappeared. Outside the barrier of the universe, the fifth dimension Tendo gently nibbled on the grilled fish in her hand. Then she shook her head and sighed. "There are really more and more troublesome things. I thought you were going to hide for the rest of your life." At this time, a voice came from behind the fifth dimension Tendo. The fifth dimension Tendo turned around and looked at the speaker. It was the little Taoist. The fifth dimension Tendo said with a smile, "I just strolled around." Xiao Dao stared at the fifth dimension Tendo. "What is going to happen?" The fifth dimension Tendo said with a smile, "Do you know about the Tao Scripture?" Tao Scripture. Hearing this, Xiao Dao's expression changed. "Of course I know." At this point, she seemed to have thought of something, and her pupils suddenly shrank. Don't tell me that there is a Tao Scripture in that study room." The fifth dimension Tendo said with a smile, "Congratulations, you guessed it right." Xiao Dao's expression became extremely grave. Tao Scripture. That was what all self-release realm experts pursued. Back then, the strongest expert in the Tao world, Yi Lanting, relied on a remnant page to become the strongest expert in the Tao world. If there was an entire Tao Scripture, as if thinking of something, Xiao Dao looked at the fifth dimension Tendo. The prophet is Yi Qingji, who disappeared from the Tao world back then. The fifth dimension Tendo said with a smile, "It should be." Xiao Dao said in a deep voice, "What about Yi Xian?" The fifth dimension Tendo said with a smile, "What else can we do?" "It's nothing." Xiao Dao looked at the fifth dimension Tendo. "Do you know what that Tao Scripture means?" Xiao Dao said with a smile, "I know." Xiao Dao looked at the fifth dimension Tendo and did not speak. The fifth dimension Tendo said, "Don't keep thinking about me. Also, something should have happened to your demon Dao family. You must be mentally prepared." Xiao Dao frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" The fifth dimension Tendo said with a smile, "As far as I know, your demon Dao family might have gone to look for the plain-dressed woman." Xiao Dao's expression froze. Looking for the plain-dressed woman? Had the demon Dao family gone mad? Xiao Dao looked at the fifth dimension Tendo. "You were the one who told them to go, right?" The fifth dimension Tendo quickly shook his head. "I did not do it. I just told them that she is Yi Xian's little sister and that they should not provoke her. But it seems that your demon Dao family did not listen to me." Xiao Dao sighed softly. Blame the fifth dimension Tendo? They definitely could not be blamed. If they wanted to blame someone, they could only blame the stupidity of the demon Dao family. Looking for the plain-dressed woman? They were really tired of living. The fifth dimension Tendo suddenly said, I still have something to do, so I will take my leave first. After saying that, she turned around and disappeared. Xiao Dao was stunned. She looked around and could not feel the aura of the fifth dimension Tendo at all. This woman ran away again. After a moment of silence, Xiao Dao sighed softly and turned around to leave. She did not want to care about the matters of the demon Dao family anymore. In the sixth dimension, on top of a sacred mountain, there was a very old temple. No one knew the origin of this temple. On this day, the temple's door, which had been closed for countless years, suddenly opened. Then a woman carrying a bamboo basket walked out. The woman was wearing a cloth hat, monk robes, and a pair of straw sandals. After she walked out of the temple, she turned around and respectfully bowed to the temple. Then she walked down the mountain. Dao world. Not long after the demon Dao family's incident, the entire Dao world began to frantically search for the plain-dressed woman. The plain-dressed woman. Chapter 1204. In truth, the experts of the sixth dimension were still very afraid of the plainly dressed woman. This was a super expert that had killed a sixth dimension self-release realm expert. How terrifying was this kind of person? But there were still many factions that went to search for the plainly dressed woman because it was said that she had been heavily injured after fighting against the sixth dimension super experts of the Demon Path clan. Heavily injured. One could imagine how heavily injured she would be if she fought against six self-release realm experts. Without a doubt, the plainly dressed woman was definitely very, very weak. Perhaps a half-step self-release realm expert would be able to kill her. In the entire sixth dimension, not only some old factions, but even some small factions were madly searching for the plainly dressed woman. Dao scriptures. That woman had read Dao scriptures. Just as countless experts of the sixth dimension were searching for the plainly dressed woman, the Demon Path clan had quietly disappeared. At the same time, the Demon Path clan's Emo Zhong left the sixth dimension and headed for the fifth dimension. Fifth dimension. Yi Xian didn't know that something big had happened in the sixth dimension. He was cultivating every day and then sparring with Enlancio, Shaoqi and the others. It had to be said that during this period of time, the entire fifth dimension had undergone earth-shattering changes. Because with the help of the spirit of Dark Race and other large factions, more and more talented experts were breaking through. Moreover, the fifth dimension was madly searching for those talented people. In the past, many people had talent but didn't have the opportunity. Now Yi Xian had given them this opportunity. As long as you had talent, worked hard enough, and didn't have a bad personality, the fifth dimension would provide you with free cultivation resources. Not only that, there were also countless super experts to guide you. Although the fifth dimension didn't have any self-release realm experts, there were more and more half-step self-release realm experts, especially the origin-shattering realm and void-shattering realms. The overall strength of the fifth dimension couldn't be compared to the past. In a certain void, Yi Xian stood with his sword in hand. Facing him was Shaoqi. Shaoqi looked at Yi Xian. The move you used just now is called Sword Sense? Yi Xian nodded. Shaoqi said in a low voice, What is Sword Sense? Yi Xian said with a smile, This is our belief in the sword doctrine. With our belief, Shaoqi suddenly said, I understand. Yi Xian, I? Seven suddenly sheathed his sword. I need to go into seclusion for a few days. At that time I will fight you one-on-one. With that she turned around and left. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. Understood just like that? I'm not done yet. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from behind him. She's very special. After saying so, she turned around and left. Sita looked at Yi Xian and said, It's not shamelessness at all, it's shamelessness. I admire you. After saying so, she also turned around and left. Yi Xian was speechless. On this day, an old man suddenly came to the Tendo pawn shop. This person was Emo Zhong. Xiao Dao looked at Emo Zhong in front of him and did not speak. Emo Zhong quickly bowed respectfully and said, Missy. Xiao Dao said calmly, I'm not your Missy. Emo Zhong smiled bitterly and said, The demonic Dao family is gone. Xiao Dao frowned slightly and said, What do you mean? Demon Ancestor sighed softly and said, The family went to find that plain-dressed woman and invited her back to the demonic Dao family. Fools? Xiao Dao suddenly shouted angrily and said, You really are fools. Emo Zhong nodded and said, This time our demonic Dao family was extremely stupid. Xiao Dao said solemnly and said, What was the result? Emo Zhong said solemnly and said, Apart from me, all the self-release realm experts were killed. Apart from that, most of the experts in the family were killed by her. Xiao Dao looked at Mo Zhong and said, "Why did they let you go?" Mo Zhong hesitated for a moment and then said, "The family had agreed to your marriage with Yi Xian, and then he said that Yi Xian is half a member of our demonic Dao family." Xiao Dao's eyes slowly closed. As expected, that woman would only give face to Yi Xian. Besides Yi Xian, that woman would not give face to anyone else. Mo Zhong said in a low voice, "Missy, before the family died, they said that from this moment onwards, you are the family head of the demonic Dao family." Xiao Dao sneered and said, "You want to use me to use that Yi Xian?" Mo Zhong's smile became even more bitter, and he said, "We only hope to survive and preserve a trace of the demonic Dao family's inheritance." As he spoke, he looked at Xiao Dao and said, "Missy, only you can carry the banner of our demonic Dao family's revival." Xiao Dao shook her head and she said, "I have no relationship with the demonic Dao family anymore." Mo Zhong was anxious in his heart and he hurriedly said, "Missy, I know you hate the family for treating you like that in the past. It was the family's fault, but now," as he spoke he smiled bitterly and said, "Now that the family is like this, if no one carries it, then everyone in the demonic Dao family might die. You should know that the Dao world is crueler than any other place." Xiao Dao said indifferently, "That has nothing to do with me." Mo Zhong hesitated for a moment and then he said, "Missy?" Xiao Dao looked at Mo Zhong and then she said, "I can't save the demonic Dao family." Mo Zhong said bitterly, "If Missy doesn't do anything, then the demonic Dao family will be reduced to a subsidiary family of someone else. At that time, the fate of everyone in the demonic Dao family will be in the hands of someone else." Xiao Dao fell silent. Mo Zhong wanted to say something, but a voice suddenly sounded out from outside the door. "Why is it your demonic Dao family again?" Mo Zhong turned to look and a man walked in. The person who came was Yi Xian. Mo Zhong glanced at Yi Xian and he said, "You are?" Xiao Dao suddenly said, "He is Yi Xian." Yi Xian. Mo Zhong was stunned and then he hurriedly said, "So it is young Master Yi?" "No, it should be young Master Yi." "Young Master." Yi Xian was stunned. "Xiao Dao." Yi Xian looked at Xiao Dao a little confused. This demonic Dao family called him young master? What was going on? Xiao Dao looked at Mo Zhong, "Don't talk nonsense." Mo Zhong hurriedly said, "I won't talk nonsense. The family has already agreed to the two of you being together. Young Master Yi is my demonic Dao family's young master. This is a fact that no one can change." Yi Xian's expression became a little strange. "Young master? What the hell?" Yi Xian was about to speak when Xiao Dao suddenly said, "I said I won't care about the demonic Dao family's matters. You can leave." Mo Zhong's expression became a little awkward. He hesitated for a moment, and then he looked at Yi Xian and said, "Young Master Yi, please persuade Miss." Yi Xian smiled, "Persuade her for what? Your demonic Dao family was very unfriendly when they came here before." Mo Zhong said in a deep voice, "They're already dead." Yi Xian frowned slightly, "What do you mean?" Mo Zhong glanced at Yi Xian and then he said, "Young Master Yi doesn't know what's in that study?" Yi Xian was even more stunned when he heard this. "Do you know what's in that study?" Mo Zhong said in a low voice, "Supposedly the prophet was the Dao world's Yi Qingji, and the number one divine treasure of the Dao world, the Dao scripture, was in that study." The Dao scripture. Yi Xian looked at Xiao Dao. "The prophet was that Yi Qingji?" Xiao Dao glanced at Yi Xian and then he said, "It should be. His ancestor was an extraordinary expert called Yi Lanting. She was extremely strong and she was publicly acknowledged as the number one expert in the Dao world. She was the first expert to attain the self-release realm. The reason she was able to attain the self-release realm was because of a damaged page of the Dao scripture. He broke through to the self-release realm before the age of 20, so the people of the Dao world believed that the complete Dao scripture was in his hands. Thus, countless experts joined forces to annihilate the Yi family, but Yi Qingji vanished." As she spoke, she paused for a moment and then she said, "If the prophet was really Yi Qingji, and if the Dao scripture really is in that study, then I can take responsibility and tell you that those self-release realm experts of the Dao world will fight you to the death." Yi Xian was speechless. This was completely the demon Dao family's fault. Tendo smiled. "It's not a good time for you to go back now." Xiao Dao spoke in a low voice. "I'll go back and manage the demon Dao family. It'll be of help to him." Mo Zhong's eyelids twitched. "Why does my young miss seem to be siding with an outsider?" Heavenly Dao laughed and said, "You're right." As she spoke, she blinked and said, "I've calculated with my fingers. You'll have a difficult time going to the Dao world. I have a plan that can keep you safe. Do you want to hear it?" Xiao Dao looked at Tendo. What are you trying to say? Tendo smiled. I've calculated what's going to happen next. Didn't you run away from your marriage? Do you think that the imperial family will let you go? They won't. Especially when your demon Dao family is weak now. So, once you go up there, the man from the imperial family who wants to marry you will definitely come looking for you. He'll definitely cause trouble for you because of face. You and your demon Dao family are completely unable to resist him, right? Xiao Dao's face sank. Mo Zhong's face was extremely gloomy as well. He'd almost forgotten about this matter. Xiao Dao suddenly said, What plan? Tendo said seriously, This plan is to use a man's so-called pride to divert his hatred. Xiao Dao frowned. What do you mean? Tendo said seriously, If he comes looking for you, tell him that Yi Xian is very outstanding, very outstanding, and he's the number one person in the younger generation. As she spoke, she licked the candied fruit and continued. So long as you say that, if he's a person with strength and intelligence, he'll definitely want to compete with Yi Xian and defeat Yi Xian with his own hands. Then he'll come looking for you and tell you that your judgment is really bad. If he's an idiot, he'll definitely charge down and kill Yi Xian immediately. In any case, no matter what, he'll only come looking for Yi Xian. Because a man can't stand a woman talking about how outstanding another man is in front of him. He'll prove to you that he's better than Yi Xian. So he'll definitely come looking for Yi Xian. This way your troubles will be temporarily resolved. Mo Zhong, Xiao Dao looked at Tendo and didn't say anything. Tendo continued, After you go up, if you don't want the demon Dao family to have more troubles, you have to tell those self-release experts that the Dao scripture is indeed in Yi Xian's hands. Moreover, Yi Xian is about to break through to self-release. If they don't come looking for Yi Xian quickly, Yi Xian will become invincible with the help of the Dao scripture. This way they won't have the mood to care about your demon Dao family, and you can lead the demon Dao family to recover. Xiao Dao said in a low voice, Is it really good to treat him like this? Tendo blinked. Feeling sorry for him? If there really was such an array, then perhaps only Yi Xian would be able to withstand such a powerful force. Yi Xian looked at Guanyin. This is the method I thought of to deal with the fifth dimension tribulation. If that study room is useless, then what do we do? Therefore, we must have the ability to resist the fifth dimension tribulation. If we don't use this method, then those ordinary people can only wait for death. Besides, if we don't use this method, then what's the point of all of us becoming stronger? My idea is very simple. All the living beings in the fifth dimension will unite together. If the fifth dimension tribulation comes, then we'll fight it. If the Dao realm comes, then we'll fight the Dao realm. Guanyin looked at Yi Xian for a moment, then said, Come. Once she finished speaking, a shadow suddenly appeared at the door of the room. Guanyin said, Send my order. Gather all the array masters and spirit array masters in the fifth dimension. In any case, as long as there are people with special abilities, summon them to Shaman City. Also, notify the leaders of the ancient race, the sacred temple, the Wu clan, the celestial race, and all the other forces to come to Shaman City. Tell them that there's something important to discuss with them. The shadow nodded slightly, then quietly left. Guanyin looked at Yi Xian. Next, we need to consider two things. First, where should we build the array, and second, the supply of spiritual energy. That kind of array will definitely use up a lot of spiritual energy. That's why we must prepare enough spiritual energy. Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, We'll build the array in the galaxy. We'll use the galaxy as the array because I can devour the power of the stars. Guanyin suddenly asked, Besides devouring the power of the stars, what else can you devour? Yi Xian said, Sword energy, aura of death, fire energy, ice energy, wood energy. In any case, I can devour all the power of the five elements. I can also devour most of the things that aren't part of the five elements. Guanyin looked at Yi Xian as if she was looking at a monster. Guanyin stopped thinking. I understand. I'll ask someone to gather all the power of the five elements in the galaxy. Yi Xian said in a low voice, This might be very troublesome and difficult. Guanyin looked at Yi Xian. You don't have to worry about this. I'll handle it well. You just need to tell me what to do with the spiritual energy. Yi Xian smiled. Ask Xiaolinger to help. There are a few spirits following her. Guanyin shook his head. That's not enough. Yi Xian quickly said, Then ask her to continue looking for spirits. Guanyin frowned. Those spirits are not easy to get in touch with. Yi Xian quickly said, Ask Xiaolinger to fool them. She knows how to fool them. Guanyin. He was a swordsman who had comprehended the sword domain and sword intent at any rate, so he still had this bit of mental fortitude. Right at this moment, Xiao Yu suddenly said, "Look, her eyes are moving." Yi Xian looked at the woman when he heard this. Sure enough, her eyes were actually moving. She was looking at Moon Yin. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he gazed at Moon Yin. Moon Yin smiled and said, "I sealed her in ice, but I only restricted her freedom. I didn't make her fall into a deep sleep. I wanted her to be like this. She's conscious but she can't move." As she spoke, she gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. "Do you think I'm very cruel?" Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, "I don't know what happened, so I won't comment on it." Moon Yin smiled, and then she walked over to the frozen woman. She gazed at the woman and noticed that the woman's expression was calm. There was no rage or hatred in her eyes, and she was calm to the point it was slightly abnormal. Meanwhile, Moon Yin suddenly waved her right hand, and then the mysterious energy that confined the woman vanished without a trace. It didn't take long for the woman to regain her freedom. Once she regained her freedom, she gazed at Moon Yin. In the next moment, she took a step forward, and the temperature in the surroundings suddenly plummeted. At this moment, Yi Xian's expression changed drastically because he noticed that his body had actually started to freeze inch by inch. Domain of Ice. Yi Xian hurriedly activated the sword domain, and his body gradually returned to normal at the instant that it appeared. Meanwhile, Moon Yin smiled and said, "Looks like you haven't wasted your time here in the past few years for nothing. You've actually comprehended Domain of Ice here, and you've even attained the self-release realm. How rare." The woman stared fixedly at the Tendo. "Underestimating me will be the greatest mistake of your life." Right at this moment, Moon Yin suddenly vanished on the spot. A moment later, her hand suddenly grabbed the woman's neck, and the woman's eyes opened wide with disbelief. Because at this moment, her Domain of Ice had actually disappeared without a trace. Moon Yin slowly lifted the woman up and smiled. "Are you surprised? Are you surprised?" The woman stared fixedly at Moon Yin. "Exactly how strong are you?" Yi Xian gazed at Moon Yin as well because he wanted to know the answer to that question as well. Moon Yin chuckled, "Actually, I'm not strong at all. For example, I can't defeat this woman in a simple dress." Yi Xian almost fainted when he heard this. Motherfucker.